All right, folks, it's another Thursday, so time for another edition of Thursday Coast. Lots to talk about, a lot. And we even have a bit of breaking news we'll start with. But as always, the founder of dailycoast.com, the largest online progressive community, the host of the Ever Popular podcast, The Brief, and the founder of Civics with a Q, civics.com. He does numbers. He does the numbers too. We can't wait to hear the latest on that. Marcos Melitsas joins us once again. First of all, buddy, how are you today?
Doing great, Mark. How are you doing?
Just fine. So what I want to do first, we've got a bit of breaking news coming out of North Carolina, or the beginning of breaking news. In any moment now, the news about this news is going to expand. And here we have the Republican gubernatorial candidate, Mark Robinson, being pressured to withdraw from the race, right?
Yeah, fresh news, just literally minutes ago. Um, so, Mark, how much how much have you guys talked about Mark Robinson? Because that guy is a
Oh yeah, yeah.
he's a literal Nazi, and somehow landed the Republican nomination for governor because he's probably the Trumpiest of Trumpy Republicans in North Carolina, and he's just been an absolute disaster for them. In fact, we were just looking it up. The recent poll of North Carolina by this very publication, the Carolina Journal, found that Mark Robinson was at 39% of the vote. He's not even hitting 40%. And so the story basically says that he's being pressured to drop out by both his staff and Donald Trump staff. And because they say there's a story about to be published or broadcast about something to do with him and adult websites in the 2000s. So I don't know. I don't know about that, Mark. I actually think that that he is polling at 39%. They want him the heck gone out of there because he's dragging down the ticket. And if you look at the 538 polling composite of North Carolina right now, it's actually on a razor's edge. It is even. In fact, it's what Trump 47.6, Harris 47.3. Mark, that is within the margin of turnout. It is as close of a race as you can imagine. And the fact that you have a governor that is actually actively repulsing voters is a problem. So I think that's what they're trying to do. I don't know what this adult website thing. Maybe it's a thing that maybe it's like a serious thing. I would sincerely be surprised if it was beyond hypocrisy.
You'd be surprised if it was a serious thing.
Uh, I'd be surprised if it was something more than just hypocrisy.
Well, it is hypocrisy. Now,
So
Marcos, literally just before we went on live, folks, he shared the story with me, and those of you looking on screen can see the second paragraph. I blew it up. Sources with direct knowledge have spoken with Carolina Journal on the condition of anonymity and said that Robinson is under pressure from staff and members of the Trump campaign to withdraw from the governor's race due to the nature of the story, which they say involves activity on adult websites in the 2000s. I sent that to a person not to be named who's very much knowledgeable about everything campaign wise. And they have replied to me
ooh, that was quick.
with very graphic wording about what the story
Oh,
will be.
can you share?
Uh, um, I want to, but when I need to be, I'm not up on every
All right.
sexual term. So before I do that, keep talking while I Google the right term.
So was he a performer? Did he own an adult website? Did
Um,
he just
um,
partake in them? I mean,
this is unconfirmed. This is from the source who has just shared this with me. I've heard of the suffix or the root word Folks, we're all adults, and it's kids should be in school today. What I'm about to share, and I know I'm a minister, but we're adults. I just want people to be clear. And the terminology I'm about to use is probably not the terminology you're going to hear in the media. Okay. We have heard of the term cunnilingus. Now, adults,
Okay.
we all know what that is. This is unconfirmed, but from a reliable source. Analingus.
Okay.
Analingus. So you all look at the root words. I'm sure you can figure that out without me having to spell it out. If you need to look it up, Anilingus. Allegedly, that's what we are dealing with. Now, it is unclear what I'm told, not him in the act, but him posting about it in some forms. That's what I'm told. Unconfirmed.
Is it
Source.
is it that I mean the context there could be either heterosexual or homosexual. Is there
Doesn't say.
doesn't say. All right. So I mean, yeah,
Although
I don't
when-
kink shame. I do not kink shame. People do their things. But if we're talking about a hypocrisy story, I mean, that looks like where is this landing? I don't know if that's enough to knock out anybody in this day and age of Donald Trump, other than the fact that he's already polling at 39%. And it's a great excuse by panicked Republicans. And we know what that feels like. We were there. We were there with Joe Biden. So they're seeing Joe Biden was losing by 2. Robinson's losing by 12 by a lot of points. And so and worse than that, he's actually dragging down the Trump ticket. So they may just be using this as a way to drag down, to kick him out. But Mark, we read the story, and the story says that you cannot remove him from the ballot anymore. Ballots have already been printed. So they can replace him, but his name's still on the ballot, which seems kind of pointless almost, right?
Yeah, name on the ballot. And if he drops out, any votes in his name would go to whomever they would choose as a replacement candidate.
But I mean, they don't have the money to a big ad campaign saying that's not our guy. the vote for Mark Robinson's a vote for somebody else. Please turn out and vote. I mean, it's a they're in a hot mess. But you know what? They deserve it because Mark Robinson is a literal Nazi, and they are the worst. They are the worst, and so now they reap the rewards, don't they?
Well, and again, it is the hypocrisy, and it is. You say you don't know if there's any shame, but I think that even amongst Trump's base, despite what Mark Robinson thinks he is, what he sees in the mirror, to them he is still a black man.
Yeah.
And we've seen historically when they have these Uncle Tom step out here on their behalf, they will sell them out and cut them off in a minute. The only one to really get away with something like this was Clarence Thomas. But this is a contradiction, and
Wow.
and we know about their paradoxes when it comes to some of their evangelical preachers and the freaky kinky. But this man is no good. So we will see what comes. But that is the breaking news, even from the Trump campaign, folks, because this porn story. And again, this is not just visiting sites. From what I'm being told, this is him making posts on the subject. So he is posting in it says in forums, in porn forums. I just
Jesus.
So he's writing.
Who found that? That's some serious opposition research work. I don't even know how you even begin to track that down. Congratulations to whoever, or maybe condolences, whoever had to track that one down.
Yeah. And funny, I don't understand people. We don't know what somebody did, but they know what they did. He knows he did that. Like Trump knows everything he did.
Yeah.
So I don't know what gives people the gall sometimes. But I understand this last thing we'll say on this topic. It tracks. you have a black man attacking Dr. Martin Luther King and civil rights and black people running for governor of North Carolina. The GOP latches on to him. They have no common sense because they don't stop and think, you know what? This dude might be crazy because he's a black man trying to appeal to us so much he hates Dr. King. It doesn't track for them that he might be a little off in some other areas.
The warning signs were all there. he hasn't been shy about his nuttiness, so it's not like, yeah.
So what does that do, in your opinion, when it comes to in North Carolina for the Harris Walz ticket? What's
national competent Republican gubernatorial campaign would have its own field operation, its own messaging, its own get out the vote operation, getting people excited to turn out and vote. The Democrats have that on their side. So instead of that, you have a basic is alienated so many people that in a 50, actually North Carolina is like a 53-47 state, right? 52-48 Republican state. It is a slight lean red state. And somehow he's only getting 39% of the vote in the latest North Carolina poll by this North Carolina publication, so local pollsters. And so it puts the Trump campaign at a disadvantage. And if the Republican Party is in turmoil in North Carolina, that further impacts. And, you know, these kind of effects, Mark, in a national election, they're slight, right? I mean, it'd be 1 point. Right. But if the race is 50-50, that's 1 point. I mean, if Harris wins North Carolina by 30,000 votes, you could probably directly trace that to Robinson and his shit show of a campaign. So there is clear reason for the Trump campaign to be worried about Robinson. And I suspect, as I think, like, what are they trying to do? I think they think that him being on a campaign trail and opening his mouth is killing him. Like, even if they just shut him up, like, there's no hope of winning. They're not going to win the governor's race. Like, they just, that's gone. Nobody's pretending otherwise, I don't think. They just want him off the stage. And I don't even know if that happens if they push him out of the campaign. People like that don't tend to go quietly. But in fact, he might be even more unleashed to be even crazier if he's no longer the actual candidate. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he's already all gone. But I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shut him up because every time he speaks, he turns off more Republicans and independents in North Carolina. And all the state's going to be decided on the margins. I mean, this is a state that's going to be, I mean, it is as 50-50. It is the most 50-50 state in the country right now in the polling consistently. We're not talking one poll. We're talking consistent poll after poll after poll is showing that it's on a razor's edge.
You're not going to believe this. So those, some of you who follow my personal social media, I haven't talked about it much on the show. I have returned to seminary. I am at seminary now. Getting my PhD, and we are live on Facebook. I will have you know, Marcos and audience, that the very first person to comment on this conversation and about what I just shared about Mark Robinson is one of the deans at my seminary.
You in trouble? Are you getting reprimanded?
No, I'm not in trouble, but I said, I don't want folk in seminary. That's why I said I was very careful about how I worded it. I was very, so that's a little embarrassing. And I just started seminary. So this seminary, this is my introduction to some in seminary. Lord have mercy, Mark Robinson. So I guess I have to choose whether I'm going to be a journalist or a surgeon. Make a choice, right?
Oh my God, it's so funny.
It is. So that the first person to comment on that. So Quentin Robertson, in fact, thank you, Brother Quentin, from the Urban Theological Institute of United Lutheran Seminary. Lord have mercy. Okay, y'all pray for me. I'm sure I'm good, but nonetheless, it's a little embarrassing. So yeah, we got Mark Robinson. Now, you had done a 3-part series on how Harris can win. So let's get into that. And you
No,
touched numbers.
it's not how she can win. It's the conditions are brewing for a landslide win. Not saying we have that now. I'm saying that we may be seeing a much bigger victory than what the numbers show right now.
Wow.
Nobody likes to hear that, though. People get really wigged out by it, and because they don't want anybody to get complacent or think we have this in the bag. We do not have this in the bag, everybody. Let's just be very, very clear about that. But actually, it is the conditions are there, certainly forming for something much bigger than what we're seeing right now.
Wow. So well, first of all, how much have the numbers changed since we talked last? Because the last time we talked, you had us at 251.
Yeah.
With Wisconsin in the bag. So what is the update?
Oh, no, not in the bag, but ahead.
Well, I mean ahead. I mean.
No.
But I mean, we were counting.
Yeah.
We were counting them as if they were. We were counting at 251 as if they were there. Gotcha. Right.
So we are now seeing in the public polling, we're seeing a post-debate bounce for Harris. So at the time, a week ago, the polling composite was around +2 Harris. She was about like 49, 47. I haven't checked the last hour, but as of earlier today, every poll conducted in like the last 3 days, so it was like 8 polls in a row, all had Harris up by either 5 or 6 points. So she is seeing a major bump. Now, the thing that happens is, we've talked about this before, it could be called non-response bias, where Republicans are too depressed after the results of the debate that they're not answering the polls. They're not answering the phone in the same amount of numbers, and Republicans are energized, right? Because we just whooped his ass. So we could be seeing about some of that. So that could come down to earth in the week, in the next week or so. But as of now, I'm not seeing anything come down to earth. I'm seeing Harris expand that lead. And in the 538 polling composite now, she is at, let's see, where's she at right now? She is at like +3, but that includes a lot of polling from before the debate. So like all the recent polling is just, it's gaudy. It's just +4, +5, +6, and she's hitting 50% in a lot of these polls. And so nationally, she's looking fantastic. Now we all know it's not a national election, right? It's an election of 6 states. 6 states are the ones that matter, and in those states, we are still seeing Harris look good in Michigan and Wisconsin. Pennsylvania polling is all over the place. Either it's tied or she's up by 4 or somewhere in between, depending on the pollster. I would guess, educated guess, that Harris has a narrow lead in Pennsylvania, but it's a narrow lead. And again, we've talked about this before. If Harris wins Pennsylvania, there really is no realistic path to victory for Donald Trump. There's no way he wins. Trump loses Pennsylvania, and he wins. No, sorry. So he loses Pennsylvania and somehow cobbles enough other states to still pull off the victory. Pennsylvania is, I think, rightly regarded as a tipping point state. It's the state that will pretty much decide the election. Now, that assumes Kamala wins with Michigan. It assumes she wins Wisconsin. Those states are safer for her right now than Pennsylvania is. But yeah, I think Pennsylvania is going to be the ball game.
And folks, so we're looking at, and this is the 538 composite that those of you watching can see on the screen. So that's your argument for the numbers. I want to go back to something you shared with us last week in terms of Florida. I want to just reiterate that to be sure we got that right. You said to us that the Haitian community votes 70%. in Florida?
That is what a University of Florida research project determined, that the Haitian community's turnouts around 70%, which is
Yeah,
higher than almost all groups. Those Miami immigrant groups, they vote. Cubans too, right? Cubans vote Republican at probably similar rates, but yeah, Haitians vote.
yeah, and
They're
that
not.
can make a difference. But we're still not at a place where we see Florida really being much in play yet.
No. And the problem with Florida, so these numbers are actually from last Saturday. So right now you have Pennsylvania here at Harris 0.5. She's now at Harris is now leading Pennsylvania in the polling composite by 1.4. So she's expanding her lead this week in all of these states. North Carolina remains pretty much, I think it's -2 right now. But the problem with Florida is that even if it gets within the margin of turnout, there's no major get out the vote operation by the Harris campaign in Florida. There's one for the Senate race. Obviously, House races have their own get out the vote operations, but it doesn't make sense for Harris to, and it's probably too late now anyway, to build a major robust get out the vote operation. So if she wins Florida, it's because Trump has utterly collapsed. Like he is just, just a massive collapsed mass of bones because um, that's not within the margin of turnout. Everything else is within the margin of turnout, Mark. And we've talked about that. It's if you're within 3 points in the poll, get out the vote operation is going to decide it. Is who turns out their voters better, get them right now registered to vote, and then turns them out better than the other side. And this is one reason I'm extremely, extremely optimistic about bigger numbers that we're seeing here because Trump still does not have a get out the vote operation in most of these states. And in fact, I just saw a story yesterday from one of the Arizona newspapers that the Trump campaign just fired their get out the vote um, contractor yesterday. And they're going to start from scratch. So I got to find a new contractor. They got to hire new people to do all the canvassing and knocking on doors. Mark, we're like under 50 days. And they
Yeah.
still don't, they literally do not have a get out the vote operation in Arizona right now. And it's the same in most of these states because it was the first thing they fired when they took over the DNC. They fired the entire get out the vote team. They fired the get out the vote team and they fired the communities of color minority outreach teams. That's what they got rid of.
So here's the 538 for Pennsylvania as of today, folks. And it's at 48.2 for Harris, 46.8 for Trump. So
So
that's
yeah, and so look at this. So you look at that and you go, okay, it's a 1.4 point lead. That's not a big lead, right? Like, again, this is within the margin of turnout. But look at where Harris is. She's at 48.2. What does she need to do to if she gets to 50, that's a ball game, right? There's nothing Trump can do at that point. She is so close to getting to that 50% mark. And again, this is polling. This doesn't guarantee that she wins, but he's got a lot further to go to get to a winning majority than she does. And sort of that's the big difference heading in is as the closer you get to 50, the better shape you are. And so we've seen that nationally Trump is maxed out at 46%. He can't get to 47%. He just cannot, he's never gotten there. And it's interesting, you see it in a lot of these battleground states. That's where Trump is. Even in these battleground states, he's hovering in that 46, in those 46s. It's a tough place for him to be. And he does nothing to build his support. He's doing everything to alienate support. And we've talked about it before, Mark, the one swing demographic or college educated suburban white women, they're looking at the Haitian racist thing and they're horrified. Like there's nothing there for them to make them think, yeah, okay, maybe we'll swing back to Donald Trump and JD Vance this cycle. So they are so the numbers are looking good for Kamala. They're not dispositive. I just want to be very clear. Nothing in those polls says she's going to win, right? But we like being ahead. We didn't like being behind. It wasn't that long ago. So nobody come to me and say we gotta behave, we gotta act like we're 10 points down, because you know what? We were 2 points down and everybody lost their head, right? Everybody was in panic mode. So no, we're not gonna pretend we're 10 points down. We're not gonna pretend we're in 2 points down. We're gonna look at the numbers. We're gonna see the reality is we're up by 1 or 2 points in these battleground states. And it means we gotta work hard to close the deal. That's what it means.
So here we are in Michigan, folks, and that looks pretty good. The margin of error is what, 2%, 3%? What is the margin?
It's an aggregate, so it's quite fungible. A couple of points, but margin of error is just understand. So the problem with margin of error is that people see, it's, let's say it's 3, right? 3%. People think it's the same as subtracting 3 and adding 3 to the numbers, and it doesn't work that way. It's a little more complicated than that. But so what I would say with this is just, again, look at where Trump is, 46. That's like this magic number for Trump, right? 46. He's always stuck in the 46s. Harris is that much closer to 50, and it's still within the margin of turnout. 3 points, margin of turnout. If you get a consistent 4-point lead, you're starting to get out of that margin of turnout. 3 points, you're within the margin of turnout. So people are going to work hard. But I know, Mark, I know people in Michigan, they're working their butts off. Michigan is definitely a state where I am very confident in our ground game. And I don't know if Republicans have anything going there yet.
So right now in Georgia too. So Trump still has a lead in Georgia according to this composite.
Yep.
But it's close. It's very, very close.
Yeah. The polling is it's kind of all over. You see polls with Harris up 2, polls with Trump up 2, and then sort of just averages out. That's what the composites are. Within the margin of turnout, Mark. Anything within 3 points is within the margin of turnout. Now, it's better when we're ahead, but you know what? It's within the margin of turnout. And the problem that Trump has is that he does not have a real get out the vote operation, right? So we can gain a couple points just on our turnout because Republicans are doing nothing to offset our get out the vote operations. Meanwhile, Trump is golfing. I mean, everybody talked about the second assassination attempt. Like, what's he doing golfing 50 days from the election?
Yeah.
He's got 3 events this week, Mark. He had one in New York yesterday. I don't know why he's in New York. He's got one in DC. He's got one in Indiana. Oh, he's got a 4th. So he's got one event in North Carolina. Only swings Indiana, DC, New York. What's he doing, Mark? Is he running for president or is he what? Like, it makes no freaking
I don't
sense.
understand what's he doing in DC today. Like, what in the world?
Yeah,
is in DC for you?
Yeah, what's in these? And then JD Vance is answering people on angry tweets on Twitter. Like, he's not even, I don't know, he's got too much time on his hand. Like, I forbid he's actually out campaigning. So it's a very bizarre situation where the campaign's just not firing. They have no message. They are being swamped in money and enthusiasm. They are behind in the polls. Arizona's what? Yeah, Arizona's tied. Within 1, it's a tied race. Because the polls can't differentiate between, so 50-50, just like North Carolina. It's a 50-50.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And so how does Trump rebuild his support? So what he's doing is he's trying to appeal to racism, right? That's his go-to. So he's going after Haitian immigrants. And Mark, in civics polling, I hate to say it, but Trump's favorabilities with white voters has gone up since the Haiti thing. They like it. They like it. So in fact, I can give you the link if you want to share it on the screen, because it's actually, so this is one of our public polls on civics. And then I'm just going to select white. And then I'm going to select the last 3 months. So let's do 6 months. All right. So where are you? You're here. So there's the link to the graph.
Okay, let me pull it up. Let's see. So this is
Trump favorabilities amongst white people from Civics, which is my polling firm.
Trump
So you,
favorability amongst
so
white
you
voters.
can so you can see that as recently as June, white voters were more negative towards Trump than they were positive, and look at the numbers are going up.
So here is June.
Yeah.
That's guilty and the hush money goes up. It goes from 48 to 50 after the assassination attempt. And so and now today it's at 50 still. It's right at 50.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
you saw that there's a little bit of tightening, and then it opens up again in the last couple of weeks with Haiti stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's when everybody says, "Oh, why is Donald Trump still competitive? Why is this still a thing?" It's white voters, right? Here you go, white voters. And so that's what they're going to go to, and that's really his only play at this point, is to try to rev up this white, aggrieved, nihilistic base to hopefully turn out in bigger numbers. Problem is, Mark, I'm seeing brown communities even more activated by it.
Good.
So
Good.
it's a zero sum game, right? He either has to eat into the Democratic support amongst communities of color, or he has to grow his percentage of the white vote. And he's definitely not gaining support amongst Black and brown communities or Asian communities. Like, he's not building support amongst communities of color. So he has to grow the white vote. But I have a story coming out later today. The percentage of white voters every 4 years has consistently gone down 1 or 2 points every 4 years. Just because there's less of them. There's more of us, less of them. And that's sort of a nice steady pace. So even if he kept his numbers from 2020, like, he'll lose even bigger, because there's going to be less white voters in the electorate compared to Black, brown, Asian, and other voters of color. So
And that's going to continue to happen as the demographics change.
yeah, that trend's that's going to keep going for a long time. I mean, at some point maybe things will change, but that ain't changing anytime soon. So yeah, you're gonna need a Republican Party. So if things turn out the way I think they're gonna turn out, Kamala Harris wins, and wins convincingly, resoundingly. You're gonna have a situation where the Republican Party is gonna have to come to terms with how they're gonna be able to speak to communities of color, because otherwise they're obsolete. They're literally, I mean, they'll be the party of Wyoming and Iowa, but congratulations, that's only gonna get you so far.
Yeah. How Harris could win big, 3-part series. Check it out. Before we go, we got a little bit of breaking news. This is I think some people would call it. Someone sent it to me and said this is actually a killer tweet. Travis Akers tweeted in response to the GOP story about Mark Robinson's, because they can't get him off. Sorry, North Carolina GOP, you have to carry Robinson the full term. Sorry, the full term. And that's something. Marcos, dailycoach.com. Check out everything there. Check out the polling. Check out how Harris could win big. Check out his series there. And as always, buddy, we thank you for joining us this week.
Appreciate you. Catch you next week.
All right.